after each meeting for a period of 3 years. Our purpose is to provide greater access to council debate, decision making and encouraging openness and transparency. However, council accepts no liability for any individual's opinions or statements. This is in accordance with council's live streaming and recording of meetings protocol, which can be viewed on the council website. And I also remind you all that local government decision making affords no protection to councillors, officers, staff, and public for comments made during meetings that are subsequently challenged in a court of law and determined to be slanderous. Can you make sure your videos are turned on? And if you wish to speak, raise your hand. And I now formally open this meeting. Good morning and welcome. Just on Zoom, we've got councillors Rose, Clark, White, Thurston and Thompson. And in the room, I've got councillors Eaty, Crosby, Love, Brunning, Mondadelson, councillor Nees and myself. Can I call for apologies, please? I've got apologies from councillor Leader. And any other apologies? Would somebody like to move? Thank you, councillor Brunning, seconded by councillor Eating. Apologies be sustained. All those in favour, raise your hand or say aye. Motion is carried. Thank you for that. Public forum, there is none. Councillors, the deputation from Western Bay Plenty District Council on Shame, their progress update on the Three Waters and the Marae offset reticulation has been withdrawn. They are not well to present to us today, and we'll defer that to the September meeting. Shame, because it's part of our core business that they couldn't have updated us today. However, we will box on, and but that deputation has been withdrawn. Items not on the agenda. We're going to have a verbal update from Laverne Mason on our climate change that's been requested, and apart from the order of business, there's no change. Any declarations of conflict of interest? Item 6. None. Moving on to the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 8th of March. This is in from page 8 onwards in your agenda. Is there any items, would you like to move that the minutes be received? Councillor Nees?
Yes, I'd like to move that they be received, and I've got a question.
Yes.
About page 14.
Page 14, go ahead.
We noted in the minutes staff are only receiving a 4% response for pollution hotline satisfaction surveys, and we're looking at ways to improve response rates. I'd like to know, Mr. Chair, if we could, at some point, what we're doing about it. Is that response rate?
Yep. Thank you. Is there a seconder for the minutes to be approved, please? Thank you, Councillor Mondadelson. Any other errors or omissions? If not, I'll put that resolution subject to Councillor Nees, a 4% response for pollution hotline. We'll get that to you. All those in favour, raise your hand, say aye. Thank you. Motion is carried. Moving on to presentations, item 8, and can I welcome Pim for our Coastal Management and Regional Parks Operation Update. Pim, welcome along to Operations and Monitoring. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And can I just check in with councillors on how long I'm allowed? Because I'm the sort of guy that can go on for a bit. So
I've got down here 20 minutes, 15 plus 5 for questions.
Right, okay. I'll be brisk then. I was going to take a more leisurely wander through. I'll keep it tight. Shari's going to share the presentation that I've prepared for you. Thank you, Shari. So just by way of reminder, the Coastal Catchments team has an operating budget of 5.5 million and a capital budget of about 2 million. Delivers work across biodiversity, water quality, co-governance, coastal and community groups and volunteers. Next slide, please, Shari. So this year we supported 5 co-governance entities, helped to create one new one with councillors for Papamoa Hills Regional Park, and we look forward to working with the Tarawera group when that sets up shortly. We engaged with 337 landowners to improve land and water practice across the 11 focus catchments, and that includes about 60 environmental programs in the Rotorua catchments area as well. We increased the proportion of our 429 priority biodiversity sites under sustained management from 40% in 2020, 42% last year, to over 43% now. And we're just doing the final calculations on what the end of year report figure will be. And we supported 53 care groups with various measures, and they have appreciated the additional resourcing that council has included in the long-term plan. And of course, we manage the regional parks. Thanks, Sharon. This is one of the dashboards that we have access to thanks to the wizardry of Glenn Clarkin and his team, and some of our friends in the finance team operating Tech One in the background. It just gives you, an illustration of the spread of those environmental programs that we're working on with landowners. It shows you where the concentrations are. Those concentrations tend to occur in focus catchments where there are known water quality issues, but also occur where the biodiversity hotspots are. The pie chart shows you the geographic breakdown by macro catchment, so it's reasonably evenly spread, and then there's some other metrics in there which we can drill into at will. Sherry.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask what the various, there's no key to the map, so what do the various dots represent?
I was given only 15 minutes, so I can spend some time with you afterwards, Councillor Love, and explain that, and we can have a look perhaps at some of the examples on the map. The next slide shows you at a more detailed level one of our, so the latest version, sorry. Okay, I reordered some of the slides and saved it, but it clearly hasn't come through in the version that you've got. Never mind. This is a project up at Athenry, and Councillor Brunning's been involved with, to recreate some inanga spawning habitat in that upper edge of the saline wedge, adjacent to Tauranga Moana. And you'll recall that you approved some changes to the environmental grants policy in the middle of 2021 to enable this sort of activity to take place. And there are a number of projects both around Tauranga Moana and elsewhere in the region where these kinds of initiatives are being done. It is one of the sweet spots, I think, for biodiversity, water quality, and that kind of adaptation to climate change work. Next slide. This might not seem a highlight, but our legal team have helped us to create a new form of covenant instrument for the land protection areas that we negotiate and offer grants to support. And it's considered to be a stronger form of protection than the memorandum of encumbrance we relied on before. So just highlighting that, and there are some nice pictures of some of the places that are involved in those protection areas. Shari. Two examples of environmental programs for biodiversity that I thought I'd highlight. The one on the left is a new one, Matai Road EP in behind Putawaki. A fantastic piece of forest, and the landowners there are very keen to do the right thing. And the Putawaki environmental program itself protects some unique and rare inland Rata Pahutakawa forest. And Mika, along with the landowners and some contractors, have done some really awesome work over the last few years to keep rat and possum levels very low. And that's leading to recovery both in the vegetation and in the bird populations. Shari. That's not all us, it's a lot about them, the community. And here's an example of a trapping workshop organised by Friends of the Blade with help from Anna Dawson and our biosecurity team. Lots and lots of interest in this, and we've had similar events together with Bay Conservation Alliance and New Zealand Landcare Trust in the Western Bay and in the Eastern Bay, which have been well attended. Shari. Right, one of the biggest capital project, well, the second biggest, sorry, after the Papamoa Hills upgrade that we're contributing to this year is the Kopurirua realignment, which is run by TCC, but the Regional Council is making a significant contribution this year and next to achieve some sediment reduction and water quality improvements, as well as the other objectives which were pursued, particularly by Tauranga City and Tamarawaho. I just want to acknowledge the work of Paul Greenshields on that, who's now looking at it from the other side of the fence, wearing his Tauranga City Council hat as he moved on from us recently. All All right, this is the slide I was anticipating earlier. So just drilling into the map a little bit closer, this shows you the kind of engagement that staff are doing with landowners at that focus catchment level. And in this case, the key shows you in purple, wetlands that are under management already. Green is an environmental program signed and underway or completed. Yellow is a draft in place ready for signing. Orange means we've been there, but either they're not interested or it's not currently feasible to work there. And red shows you the kiwifruit areas where we've provided best practice advice together with the industry extension teams. And in some cases, we have worked with the kiwifruit orchardists if they have, for example, a gully between their canopy areas that has historically been grazed. We've worked with some of those orchardists to create wetlands in the gullies between the kiwifruit blocks and retire some of the seedlings. Right, so within that focus catchment, here's a couple of examples of improving drain management. This is Andrew Semelink's farm on Kelly Road. Next slide, Shari. Here's a treatment wetland that I think some councillors went to visit last month. It's 2/3 of the way to construction, and our friends in Rivers and Drainage are building this one for us. Their offer of service was substantially better value than the market was able to provide at that time, and so it's great working with Kerry Smith, Bruce Crabb, and the team on that wetland. You can see in the image down in the bottom left what it will look like. So it's very raw in the larger image. These treatment wetlands are being built to the new NIWA national guidelines for constructed treatment wetlands, which aim to set aside 2 to 5% of the catchment area. And if they're designed with the correct hydraulic residence time and the correct planting open water combinations, are shown to reduce nitrogen and other contaminants by between 25 and 50%. NIWA is looking for a few extra data points to improve the confidence with which they're able to predict how much these treatment wetlands reduce contaminants. But it's fair to say that the science has come quite a long way in the last few years. They're not cheap, but I guess if you're going to build them for the purpose of improving water quality, you want to know that they're going to do the job. Shari? Yeah, we can probably skip this one. This is a dairy farm doing drain improvement work. So just to the east of the Kaituna River, below the old state highway. This is one of the other constructed treatment wetlands that's been built. We've built 3 this year. One on the Hickson property, which you can view from Pongakawa School Road, just off the highway. Next slide, Shari. And there's another one that we have worked with Bay Gold, the kiwifruit business. They're creating a new headquarters at the corner of Maniatutu Road and State Highway 2. This one here, which if you're prepared to turn off onto Maniatutu Road and park up, you'll get a great view of it now that it's all been planted up. So those 3 wetlands have given my staff a bit of a challenge because of the complexity of obtaining consents and so on, and doing more complicated earthworks jobs. But I think it's really valuable experience for them too. Thanks, Shari. All right, jobs for nature. So you'll remember a wee while ago we got some funding from 1BT, and we also got some funding from MFE called the Power Fund, the Public Waterways Ecosystem Restoration Fund. And that was $3 million over 3 years. So we're 70% complete now, and we are all set to deliver the remainder of that program between now and December. So just some key statistics there. That's resulted in 140 kilometres of new riparian fencing that wouldn't have been possible, or at least wouldn't have been possible so quickly without that money. 357,000 native plants. This is in addition to the plants that we would have done through the grant funding. 34,000 contractor and landowner hours, and 57 properties involved across the region. It's been very helpful, and we're waiting for MFE to release the next iteration of this kind of fund, but nothing has come through yet. Right, I've got 3 slides here on the Papamoa Hills upgrade project. So this is a photo of the paddock on the morning of the site blessing last October. I think Sarah was there. I was away that day. So if we jump to the next slide, you'll see an aerial view of that site during construction a couple of months ago, with Heb Construction Limited doing this work. It was their first major project as contractor for the regional council. You can see the extent of the geotechnical preparation there, with excavation of some of the softer peat material, including some arsenic contaminated soil from previous land use, and then the laying of geotextile and preloading with up to, in some cases, 2 meters of gap 65 or all in 65 to try and settle it. And there's a spot in the middle of that area which has settled 1.1 meters already over the course of about 10 weeks. So we have hundreds of wick drains set up through that area to allow the water to squeeze out as the preload swashes it down. And the reason for doing that, obviously, is to make sure that when we do put the pavement on after the new year in early 23, that it doesn't crack and move. Shari. So this is just a side view looking back up towards Karangaumu in the top right there, the power site, and you'll see the extent of the preload. Now this job's been relatively complicated as well, involving the diversion of what was considered a stream. But yeah, really looking forward to bringing councillors out to the site in autumn 2023. When this is ready to open to the public. Shari. A couple of bullet points from our largest single environmental program, which is the Whakatane and Ohope Reserves one, in partnership with Ngāti Awa, Whakatane District Council, Whakatane Kiwi Trust. So just to remind councillors, this environmental program has about $220,000 of regional council funding go towards it each year, and so it's our single biggest by some margin. We have just kicked off a review with the partners on performance over the past 5 years, and looking towards what the next iteration of that agreement might look like, and we'll be bringing that to councillors for consideration probably early in 2023, looking at the councillor meetings program after the election. But the great news is that it does have a lot of outcome monitoring as well as result monitoring, and it's one of the places in the region where we can absolutely demonstrate that the investment in forest protection work has resulted in more birds, more leaves on trees, and better ecological outcomes. Should also just acknowledge all of the volunteer effort that goes into that project. There are a huge number of people doing lots of stuff for free, and without that, the cost of the project would be significantly higher. Shari. Oh yeah, I've just talked about that, so we can jump that slide. Right, we're nearly there. I think I've got half a dozen slides left, Mr. Chair. So this is the old Rangataiki channel, which prior to 1914 was the course of the Rangataiki River from Thornton to Matata, but which was blocked off when the river mouth was diverted out at Thornton Beach. Now, at the moment, the only inflows into the old Rangataiki channel come from a number of pump stations servicing the surrounding land, and hence water quality is poor. We would very much like to see a project in the future where some water from the Rangataiki was reconnected with this water body to flush it and improve its dissolved oxygen levels and improve its health. But at the moment, there are a couple of legal and technical reasons why we can't make very much progress on that part of it. But what we can do is undertake a number of smaller initiatives further downstream, one of which is to leave the flat pads open at the outlet into the Tarawera for as long as possible during summer months, which allows tidal waters to ebb and flow into the channel and oxygenate at least the lower portions. We've just worked with Rivers and Drainage to try and make connections in places where there were stagnant backwaters, like the example on the screen in front of you. And we're working with Whakatane District Council to upgrade the hydraulic capacity of the crossing on Smith Road, which is a small, short road off State Highway 2 that crosses the ORC. And by increasing that capacity, we'll be able to allow some of that tidal flushing to extend beyond that culvert. At the moment, that culvert acts as a kind of pinch point, and so quite often oxygen levels are too low upstream, and there are dead fish floating on the surface, and it's unhealthy. Shari. All right, this is in the chairman's catchment. So there's a very active Waiotahi water quality care group driven by the 27 dairy farmers in the catchment. This was a Fonterra funded planting event recently with 70 people turning up to plant 1,100 plants on the estuary margin. And the whole purpose of that mahi is to try and do everything possible to reduce the E. coli inputs to the Waiotahi River to try and make the pipi bed more reliable and safer for human consumption. Shari. Post care. So this is one of my favourites. Some of the councillors will remember I was employed by council as the Coast Care Coordinator in 2008. We have this new dashboard that, again, our geospatial team has helped us come up with. It just shows you the extent of volunteer engagement. So lots and lots of schoolwork. It's 623 individuals. There's a number of groups. And with the help of contractors, so we've got Ben Banks in the Eastern Bay. We've got Chris and Jane Ward in the Central Bay. And I should mention their work because they've been with us now for 11 years and they are looking to retire when their contract expires next year, which we hope to mark. And there is a new contractor, a young lady called Ashley, who's taking over the Tauranga City part of Coast Care and Waihi Beach. Sorry. Johnson Reserve Care Group. So I just thought I'd finish with this image. You heard from the Johnson Reserve Care Group representatives at the last meeting, I believe. So here's Anna Dawson at a recent planting event with some of those members. And obviously there are lots of issues that our team encounters as well. It's not all happy families and good news stories, but I just thought I'd take you on a bit of a tour through the region and show you some of the results that have been achieved over the past 12 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Pim. Stunning what we're doing. Hey, any questions from those on the floor and on Zoom? Councillor Nees?
Thank you. Just congratulations, Pim. Great summary. I guess we'll receive a copy of that presentation.
Diligent.
And
Yep.
diligent. And
Yep.
also, have we access to that dashboard?
First one on the first slide.
Oh, well, there's a number of dashboards we saw, which I had really interesting information.
So at 3 years, Mr. Chair, at the moment, those dashboards are accessed by staff. I'll just get some guidance from Chris and Sarah. But,
Well, we can look into that, providing, I think some of our reporting already uses information from the dashboard. So yeah, I guess it goes to a level of detail that councillors will probably quickly get bogged down in, but certainly the reporting overall on progress with KPIs and the long-term plan, that sort of thing, we draw on that information.
This is the vetting order. Councillor Clark, Crosby, and then White. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, kia ora, well done. Tim, great presentation on a chilly day. But yeah, the question is the memorandum of encumbrances that you are now redesigning and redrafting. Would appreciate a little bit of feedback on how that is actually implemented and what it all means, possibly after the meeting, but I think it's quite relevant to a number of the sites that I work over and would appreciate a bit of feedback in that space. So yeah, cheers.
So that, Councillor Clark, that's in terms of the legality of the covenants versus encumbrances. Is that what you want?
Yes, yeah, Pim implied that, or said that the upgrading to give more structure and strength to some of the existing memorandum of encumbrances that we have over various wetlands to ensure that they are in fact, sound legal documents. I'm sure Pim could give us, could answer that in a minute anyway. Pim?
Okay, thank you.
Happy to provide a brief answer. So the only covenant document that I'm aware of that's been tested through the courts process is the QE2 covenant, which has survived a number of tests. Our legal team have contributed to what we call our encumbrances project, where we made sure that we had a robust inspection regime on the 400 and something memoranda of encumbrance in favour of the regional council around the region. And as part of that, we asked our legal team to just check, is this still fit for purpose? Is this still the best way to reflect council's ongoing interest? And they came back with advice to say, having looked at the options and looking at the updated legislation, we'd recommend that you use the covenant in gross instrument rather than the memorandum of encumbrance instrument. And so they've provided that for us. I think Alice Tanner from Rotorua have been involved with reviewing the proposal, and they are the ones that do most of the registration for us. If you want more detail than that, Councillor Clark, I probably have to refer you to Monique or Jess Easton into the exact whys and wherefores of this option.
Yeah, appreciate that. Tim, I understand it'll be long part, so I'll catch up on you later on. Cheers.
Councillor Crosby.
Thanks, Pim. As part of the Rangiora business park development, on the other side, probably where there's a 40 hectare wetland being proposed, and it's in its early stages of design and partnership with Tapawika. It's not quite aligned to the wetland on the eastern side of the criterion, but incredibly close to it. You and your team are working potentially with Quayside to see if there could be a connection to that to create, one substantial open space.
That's a good question. Scott Hamilton and I did have a few scheming sessions a few years ago about that, but then when the development was halted for a few years, we sort of turned our attention to some of the other locations. But happy to reopen those discussions and see whether there's potential for benefits from working with Quayside there.
I think it would be helpful through you, Chair, because they're now into the the first variation of design, I suppose you'd call it. And it could be a great opportunity there. There's also a cycleway, that goes right past both wetlands, very close to them.
Councillor White.
Yeah, kia ora, Pim. Chris, congratulations, guys, on a great effort. Obviously, you're burning the midnight oil in some of these places to get it all done. And in your presentation, there's a plethora of activities going on across the region, and I'm trying to draw, and the technology that underpins your ability to present data is impressive. I'm trying to draw the picture of sort of 10, 20, 30 years time. What would our region, our Bay of Plenty region, look like over that time with all of these activities and more to come into the picture? So I'm trying to draw that picture. Are you able to paint a projected picture of the next 10, 20, 30 years, what change might look like? Because it is really good to see that sort of more global, expansive picture of where we are heading to and what we are likely to see over that period of time. Is that possible?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, but not in the time we have available this morning and off the top of my head. So if you'd like me to do some thinking about that, I can. I agree. The cumulative effect of these changes is positive. But obviously, economic trends, land use trends, how far and fast the NPS related regulatory approach goes, and all those sorts of things will have a major bearing on what that 20-year future looks like.
Yeah, mate, I certainly would like to see a picture painted at some point anyway.
Mr. Ingle?
I just wondered, Councillor White, whether we could park that question, because it's a very good question, till we, after the elections, start tackling the new LTP, because it's a very pertinent question for that when we do start looking 10 years out and beyond, because we know that we've made predictions in the last LTP about water quality improvements and swimmability, and we haven't always got those right, because we've made assumptions knowing what we know, and we found that we don't know everything. And things that the environment sometimes behaves in ways that we didn't predict or couldn't predict. So I think every day we're learning, and we have to bring those learnings forward into our planning. But today isn't that day. I think it's in a few months' time.
Thanks, Chris. A nice humble approach. I agree.
Thanks, Chris. Councillor Easy?
Kia ora, Mr. Chair. Ko tēnei te mihi kia koe. Pim, to you and your team, it's amazing for me to see all the work, especially around the wetlands. It's incredibly important. And my question is with regards to the Waiotahi estuary. And it's amazing to see all of the plantings happening there by the farmers, sponsored by Fonterra. That's fantastic. Do we have the data around how the trends are with regards to the E. coli levels in the estuary, and whether or not these initiatives are showing impact?
Through you, yes, we do have the data. The water ecology tool on our website has the latest information on it, and I think the conclusion is that at the moment the E. coli levels and the enterococci levels, once you get into the saline environment, are still above those Ministry of Health guidelines. And I think that the conclusion that I've come to is that in that particular catchment, we do need more than just a little bit of work around the edges if we're going to reliably and consistently reduce those bacterial concentrations in the estuary.
Just a supplementary,
Yep.
Mr. Chair. Will that come down to the new freshwater policy we're doing, and especially around the FMU and limits shifting in that catchment?
Again, through you, Mr. Chair, I think that will be a really important part of it, but I don't want to understate what can be achieved through incentives and agreements as well. I think that there are so many landowners in that catchment who really do want to do the right thing. We recently had New Zealand's expert on E. coli issues come and visit us to review what's happening in the Waiotahi catchment. And I think generally speaking, we do need a bit more retirement of land around those critical source areas in the lower part of that catchment if we are to reduce those contaminant inflows substantially on a regular basis.
Kia ora, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Brunning?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, congratulations, Pim, and congratulations to your staff. The work and the dedication they have and the rapport they have with a lot of the landowners makes this job so much more pleasant. And the likes of Anna Dawson is just a delight out there in the mud.
In the mud.
When she gets in the mud, she loves it. And just to Councillor White, at another time I could tell you what a lot of the land looked like 30 years ago.
Yes.
So, and especially around the Tauranga Harbour, with the changing land use from dairy farming to horticulture, with the measures that council and farmers have taken or landowners have taken, the water quality of the Tauranga Harbour, in my view, is so much better. Sediment containment, phosphorus would be less, but still probably a problem around nitrogen, but certainly well on the way to a vast improvement.
Thank you, Councillor Brunning. Good place to end, Pim. Thank you very much for your presentation. Keep up the good work, as Councillor Brunning said. Congratulations to your staff, and yeah, we like to see the interactive and the joined up process with volunteers, care groups, and our staff working together and having enthusiasm to develop these wetlands and care groups. So congratulations, well done. Okay. Can we move on to reports? So this is the chairperson's report on page 20, and there's a lot of different issues in there, but I'll start off with bulk solids from Tauriko. Andrew, just confirming that. Wastewater treatment plant compliance. Interesting to see the blockages that TLAs have to face in terms of foreign substances going down. I didn't realise that 75% was so high. Maybe there's a TLA should be doing a bit of a media campaign, Sarah, because that figure's horrendous in terms of blockages in our wastewater systems. Update on the Rotorua wastewater scheme. You wanted some more information about the Titeko groundwater monitoring sites. So I've got Rob Donald on the line, and you wanted some more information in terms of where those bores are for Titeko. Can we have that up, please? Shari or Rob, are you on the line, please? Just talk to this report, please, Rob. And there's a map of the proximity of these bores to each other, because we were just a little bit confused of why we needed so many in such a such a small area. Over to you, Rob.
Morning, Mr. Chair, councillors. Maybe I'll talk to the report first, and then I thought what I'd do is just give you a brief demonstration of the tool that we have on the website, which will show you where the sites are, groundwater sites are across the region. And I think there's always also a question around rainfall monitoring data as well, and being able to access that, so I can demonstrate that at the same time. So in terms of the monitoring total costs, you'll have in front of you a very brief report which outlines the total cost starting in the 2019-20 capital year for the Titeko site. And so the total cost for that site is $1.5 million. And basically what we did in this case is take a staged approach to the site. And in the table below, I've just given a little bit more detail around what we actually have at the site now. So you'll see there's 4 bores, and they're numbered 91 to 94 across the top there. Some information on the depth of those bores. So I think the key thing here is that some of these bores are very deep, and we've got one at 411 metres deep, which is really why the cost is so high. Very expensive to drill to that sort of level. And of course, we had the overruns with COVID as well. Some information on the casing diameter, which is how wide the bore is with depth, so up to 150 millimetres wide, the casings, and also some details around where the screens are in the casing. So that just indicates which aquifers we're intercepting. So if you look at bore number 91, there's a screen at top of a screen at 66 metres. There's an aquifer there. The next one across 92, there's a screen at 404 metres. So there's another confined aquifer very deep at 404 metres below ground level. Some of these bores are free flowing, which means they're effectively under pressure, and that's particularly the deep bores. The shallow one is not free flowing, and also some information there on the geology. And I guess, we're down to the Matahina ignimbrite, which is at that 300 to 400 metres level. The groundwater allocation zone, which we use for consenting purposes, is called the Awaiti Canal. And I've also given you some information there on what we're monitoring. So generally, water quality is one of the key things we monitor quarterly, but we also have depth monitoring of those bores as well, which I'll be able to show you an example of that on the website.
Thank you. Have we got that map of where they are, Sharon?
Yes.
Oh.
I think I'll share my screen.
Yep.
That's okay, and we'll see how this goes. How's that looking?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, so where I've landed here is a site on our web page, and the easiest way to get to here is just do a search for data portal, and you can see my very big pointer here pointing to environmental data portal. So if I click on that, that'll take us through to a page where we have all of our environmental data available for the community. So this is a massive evolution from what we've had in the past, and our EDS and science teams have done a huge amount of work to get this available for people to see. So generally people like to go to a map, and so we have a map here on the left. If I click on that, that will come up eventually. And if I look at parameter here and we look for groundwater level. Okay, so this is all of our live groundwater monitoring sites across the region. There are approximately 30 on this page at the moment, and the Te Teko bores aren't actually there yet. That installation is still occurring. But if I take you to one of these bores and just zoom in a bit nearby, so here we have a bore at Otakeri, Soldiers Road. This one happens to be a private bore, so this is a situation where we have got equipment and a private bore to measure water level. And I can show you the data. So if you click on data set here, that will take you through to the latest data that we have for that bore. So this is limited, it's live data, it's reasonably up to date. And effectively what we've got here is the current groundwater level is around 27.7 metres in relation to Motoriki datum. So that's just an example of the sort of information you can find on this page. I understand there was also a question about rainfall. So if I go back to the map, just to show you how that works. So again, if you look at parameter on the top left here, and you should be able to scroll down and see rainfall total. Here we go. That will eventually pop up. So it is color coded. Again, you can see all of the rainfall monitoring sites we've got across the region. So this is our continuous sites. It's color coded, so we've got some rain happening right here. And if you look across the legend, that's about, I think there's a daily totals, indicates how much rain is actually fallen. So if we click on that data point, so that's Waika at Cableway, and again, look at the data set. And you can see it looks like we've had a bit of rain in the last, excuse me, 24 hours. So again, you can just navigate your way around, excuse me, the map to whichever site you're interested in. And it might be helpful if I just show you some data for, let's say, last month, just to show you what it looks like when we start totaling these up. Should give you a bit more of a useful picture. So there you go. This is monthly totals for May. So the red indicates a monthly total of 3 to 400 millimeters for the month, which is pretty significant. So that's all there. I think it's reasonably easy to navigate. You do need a good internet connection, but certainly if you want to see any of our data that's available, it's all there for you to explore. Any questions?
Just go back to river levels, Rob, because we've got some, when it rains, I want to be able to see the river levels, and I haven't been able to navigate my way around finding that as well. Okay. Oh, there's a river level stage.
So same map, again, go up to parameter on the top left, and you'll see river level here, which is stage height. And it'll just take a while to work through. Okay, so in this case, there's no scale, but if you do click on a river site of interest, so if we click on this one here, Rangataiki at Waiho. That's very slow. Okay. So then you could see what's happening in the Rangataiki.
Yep.
So yes, that's all there as well. And again, just navigate through the map to, whatever sort of information you'd like.
So when there's significant rain, Rob, we go into, is it stage 2, or the river level goes to, is that colour coded as well, so that we know the Rangataiki is running high?
I'm trying to think of generally what we do is on these graphs is there is and it's possibly going to make a liar of me, but normally what we have is an indication of the warning levels. We'll just have a look at,
that's what I'm after.
Otara at Browns Bridge. Whether it shows it or not is another matter, because if it's low, it may not show the actual lines on the map.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, come up, Glenn.
Are you there, Glenn? Are you?
Yeah, we're just getting a.
Good.
Yeah, I am, Rob. Down in the bottom right corner, there should be one with a little tick box with warning levels. The chart layers down there.
Right.
Right.
So I just scroll down. Here we go.
Here we are.
So which one am I looking at, Glenn?
Can you just drop down the chart layers one?
Warning levels. Here we go.
Yeah, click on that warning levels one there, and it'll put the lines across the graph. It auto scales, so you can see there's a warning level, yellow line at the top.
Right.
Yep.
That's what I'm after.
Unfortunately, the software doesn't allow us to keep that tick box on. So we've logged a job to do that.
We don't know. Thank you, Glenn.
But it really does need to be ticked.
Yeah.
Thanks, Glenn. I've learned something today.
Me too.
Any other questions?
Councillor Clark, any questions? Councillor Clark, you have a question? You're on mute, Councillor Clark. Can't hear you, buddy.
There we go. Okay, kia ora, Rob. Hey, just wondering if any of the data collected, particularly in drilling the bores, has any impact on the consenting and legal aspects of commercial water bottling. Is this data available to be used by those applying for water bottling consents? Can it be used? Is any context in there or not?
Oh, absolutely. So, and Glenn can probably speak to this as well, but all of this data is available to the public. If they want data downloads, it can be provided. It's effectively public information. So yes, but obviously there's a lot of science behind evaluating the numbers, but certainly it is all available if people need it for that purpose.
Thanks.
Chris?
Anything further to add, Rob?
No, I think there's probably enough.
No, that's very good. That's helps me navigate around the website now. Councillor Brunning?
You're just going back to those Titeco bores, and you've got some very deep bores there. What are you measuring there? You measuring the level of the water, or are you measuring the quality? Because the water that's down those bores would come from many miles away, I would have thought.
That's right. So yes, so we will have continuous level on those bores, and we'll also be monitoring for water quality quarterly. And we are doing some isotope analysis as well, which will enable us to age the water. And we'd expect at that sort of 400 metre level, the water is going to be quite old. It's a confined aquifer. It'd be very, very old water, but we're still waiting for most of those results to come in.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, no, thank you for that. Any further questions?
Yes, could I just ask, on that last point, what are you actually measuring in the water? Because you can't age water itself, I don't think. So it must be something in the water which you are using an isotope on.
Correct. It's an isotope process. So basically it's measuring the isotopes and determining from the decay rate of the isotopes how old the water is. That's right. And it's using tritium as one of the key markers.
Thank you.
Because we know through Rotorua water supply that it's about 80 years that it's in the ground for when it bubbles out. Ballpark figure. Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you,
Very good.
You've got Councillor White.
Oh, Councillor White, sorry, I missed you. Go ahead.
No, thanks, guys. Really impressive stuff. I'm really impressed by the level of data analysis that goes on. Sort of says to me that we are in good space to be more proactive than reactive. I just want to get a sense of. I'm assuming that we're working very closely with other research institutes like NIWA and Met Services and all those guys. Does that happen often with this data that we've got? Because it seems to me that there would be a high level of interest from those areas of really getting down to ground data, regional ground data. Is that happening at all?
I'll answer partially, and I think Glenn will have a better response to that question. So one of the key CRIs we're working with is GNS Science. So they're one of the recognised experts in geothermal and groundwater. So we are working very closely with them. But I think Glenn, if you're still there, probably could talk around the NIWA and Met Service.
Yep, he's coming.
Sorry, what was the question again?
Different partners we work with.
CRIs, Glenn, NIWA, Met Service,
yeah,
etc.
we work with NIWA. So NIWA actually provides some service for us under contract, but we also share data with them. Basically, all the CRIs use our data, Stats NZ, MFE. Everything that's on that website is essentially available to anyone. So it just gets used. We can't have an easy way to track it. We've taken a very open door policy, open data policy. It is paid for by the ratepayers, so it's open to the ratepayers.
Public information. Thank you. No further questions. Thank you for that. And Rob, thanks for your explanation and navigating through those portals. That's very useful to me and my colleagues, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Right, moving on through the agenda, Chair's report. You've got matters of potential interest. There's some more information about the NES on fresh water. Can I just briefly talk about synthetic nitrogen? Sarah, I'm not sure that we've got the model right for farmers just using Balance and Ravensdown fertiliser supplies, because I know farmers often contract a contractor to plant a crop of maize, and it's from tillage to harvesting, and the contractor will supply the fertiliser, be it nitrogen or whatever, and the contractor gets a portion of that nitrogen. However, I think there's a thing called dairy diaries, Norm. Dairy. Oh, farmers use dairy diaries to track their fertiliser usage, which is a much more robust way of tracking farm fertiliser use, and it's using the Fonterra model. So I'm not sure just taking it from Balance or Ravensdown is the correct procedure, and I think Taranaki Regional Council has a better model that they're working with through the regional sector group. So can we just make sure that we've got a fit for purpose tracking system coming out of the regional sector group rather than just going it alone? Sarah.
Through you, Chair. This relates to the requirement now for farmers to submit their synthetic nitrogen fertiliser use. From 1 July, there's an expectation that will come through. The regional councils across the sector, together with Dairy New Zealand, MFE, and all the milk companies, are working on the best model to do this. And we all agree that there should be just one provider, yes, one way of submitting that data. And work is underway on that, but unfortunately is unlikely to be ready to go live by the 1st of July. So we are taking the approach that it's, we don't want to overcomplicate this and invent another system for an interim. So we will contact the dairy farmers and just let them know to be thinking about it, be mindful of it, And once that single process is ready to go live, that's what we will be looking for. We don't want to invent two processes here, and a single national approach is best.
Perfect. Yep, moving on. So, going through the Chairman's report, you wanted on page 28, you wanted a breakdown of all the different care groups, be it volunteers, community initiatives funds, the Regional Search and Rescue Fund, in terms of how that is broken down and paid out. So that's all there for your information. I note, Councillor Thompson, that we put up a lot more money for volunteers, and you'll see there that it's been given to, bottom of page 27, 285,000 to 3 different groups, and then there's a whole lot of subsidiary groups on page 28. However, it's undersubscribed. And so there's 215 available. We've only subscribed 165. So in terms of care groups, there's still money in the budget for them. So if you have a care group that you want to, it's still there. So we haven't quite spent it all in our first year, Councillor Thompson. So, but good to see the breakdown of where it's going, be it the Volunteer Fund, the Community Initiatives Fund, and the Regional Search and Rescue Fund. Are there any questions on that one? I'm just moving through this whole Chair's report.
Quickly,
yeah.
The
Crosby?
Regional Search and Rescue Fund, what's the relationship between the Rotorua Mountain Bike Club and Search and Rescue? I was receiving 80,000 in 22-23.
So the Mountain Bike Club are getting funds for first response. To support their first response unit. Often mountain bikers crash in the forest, and often ambulances cannot access where they are, and so they now have a 4-wheel drive vehicle to put injured mountain bikers in a 4-wheel drive vehicle to take them to the ambulance that's waiting at the bottom of the hill. And these are professional paramedics. And I tell you, there's some horrendous accidents. You do not want to be a recipient of a first responder, because you know you're in deep trouble. And so this is the 80,000 is going to the first response unit. And they're delighted that we're supporting them. I've had quite a bit of correspondence with the Mountain Biking Club, and they're just chuffed that we are helping them in their funding. And they'll get their first tranche this year for 2 years in a row. Questions from Councillor Rose, Clark, and then Thurston. Councillor Rose.
Yeah, kia ora, Mr. Chair. Thank you. First of all, I want to say well done on a very good report. It's very detailed, and a lot of the questions have been asked over the course of the year. A lot of the answers are sitting within this. I just wanted to ask a pathway around, we were talking about the funding for volunteers and all. Have we communicated with all the care groups and volunteer groups that we have in our database about this funding? And if so, would staff look to do that again, since we have more funding sitting aside there, or there's more funding to be spent?
Through you, Chair, the volunteer funding that was set aside for care groups, which is the $215,000, is the additional money that the Integrated Catchments Group use to support those care groups. And so they go through a planning process each year and apply for funds. And if we've got it available, we try and provide as much support as we can. So this is part of that process, and it's part of their planning and budgeting cycle each year. So it's definitely something that the care groups are aware of.
Who else have I got? Councillor Clark, then Thurston.
I'm somewhat quizzical about there being funds unallocated or unsubscribed in the care group situation, because my understanding, we were told 6 months ago that the whole thing was actually oversubscribed for the year. And so any applications would be carried forward, and yet it appears that there is a surplus and that hasn't been socialised out there and applied for. And just so that surplus would need to be taken up by July 1, which is the end of our financial year anyway. So I guess it's a bit late for groups to be applying. And if there is a surplus there, does it carry forward into the next year? Bit of clarification, please.
Yes, thanks, Councillor Clark. Look, my understanding, and unfortunately Pim's left the room, he could answer this, but my understanding is that when this report was written, that was the total allocated, but it does say there that the remainder is scheduled to be spent before the 30th of June, which is tomorrow. So my assumption is, and I can check and get back to you, but that all of that 215 will be spent before tomorrow.
Oh, right. Okay.
Councillor
Thurston?
Yeah, thanks. Look further to Councillor Crosby's question and your response re the Rotorua Mountain Bike Club and first responders. Can someone confirm again that RLC is still not putting any financial contribution into this initiative?
Ooh, don't know. I don't know.
Can we check that out? Because to me, it's one of those roles where they're abdicating their responsibility, quite frankly. You know, we all support surf life saving because there are a lot of Rotorua people and people in our district who come over to swim and get into difficulty, and similarly you have a lot of people who are coming into our area mountain biking, so it's all a bit of a quid pro quo to me. But I find it, if staff could just check out, please, because I think it's something that we have to really get a little bit tough on, the fact that Rotorua abdicates in not making a contribution towards this.
Don't know the answer to the question, but we can find out. I don't think they're there, Lyle.
No, I don't think they are either, but thanks, Chairman.
Any other question? Oh, Councillor Nees.
Thank you. My question is just about the EEF fund. I note that we are managing additional funding requested via the EEF reserve. So I just wondered how many applications we've received or expressions of interest that we haven't been able to satisfy, and whether there is any mechanism by which staff try and ensure that we've got a good spread of these grants across the region.
Through you, Chair. Certainly a spread across the region is one of the criteria that the team work through when they're allocating that funding. Who hasn't been successful is not something I've got in front of me now, but we'll get you that information so you get the full suite of what's funded and what's not.
And do we have an idea of the dollar amount we're oversubscribed? Oh, it is 20,000. It is there. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving through the report, we've got an update on the resource consents, be it appeals, the Transpower issue there, regulating compliance on the pollution hotline, and that's your question, Councillor Nees. We've got enforcement action that's happened in the last 6 months, and on page 35. And then our data services update, we've just been into that environmental data portal, and then on our dry weather water management update, weather forecast, rainfall substantial as Stephen said, Rob said, through May, and then just have some of those river levels, soil moisture levels. So are there any other questions on the Chairman's report, please, Councillor Nees?
Thank you. Just two matters. One is the Te Puna Business Park, and the other one is the Rangatawa Bay Transpower issue.
Yep.
So you're right that there is a lot of interest in the business park at Te Puna. I was out there last week and was surprised at how many leaf boxes have got notices on them of protest about the business park. So I just want that for staff to be aware that it is a very hot issue, that people are very concerned because of past experience with industrial park and its performance against the Environment Court judgment that was made when that consent was granted. So I just asked staff to keep us involved and advised as that proceeds. I think that there will be a lot of unhappy people if we don't allow them to have a say on the resource consent process. The other one is the Transpower issue. I note that Transpower has relinquished the application for a new consent, but that they will require an application to renew the resource consent for anchor blocks in Tauranga Harbour. And I'm a little bit worried about the MACA implications of the MACA judgment on that, whether or not that would be able to come over and wipe that consent. Because the last thing we want is to have unsafe power pylons in Tauranga. So I just wonder if staff could provide some advice as to what the position is with regard to that.
Ruben, have you got a?
Yes, and through you, Mr. Chair. I'll respond to both of those if that's okay.
Yep.
So certainly, Councillor is very aware of the community views on the Te Puna Business Park, and that's why we've assigned Nick to be the go-between, essentially, between the community and our consent process, and trying our best to work collaboratively with Western Bay as well, because some of the issues will be within their mandate. In relation to the Transpower anchor blocks and the MACA customary mean title decision, the anchor blocks will be accommodated infrastructure. There's a definition in the Act that provides for that, which means that the veto right in any customary marine title won't apply. But there is going to be a hearing at the end of this year about whether the bay should have wāhi tapu status. If the decision of that hearing is that yes, it does, it will depend on the conditions that are put on that wāhi tapu notice, because we're not able to grant a consent contrary to any wāhi tapu conditions. So it's a little bit of a wait and see in relation to that. But we do have a consent application in process at the moment to renew consent for those anchor blocks. And we've had ongoing conversations with Transpower about what their intentions are. They are carrying out further engagement with iwi and Hapu before we can progress that, both in relation to the anchor blocks themselves, but also their longer term strategy for transmission infrastructure across the harbour. If, for whatever reason, consent cannot be granted for those anchor blocks, then Transpower's intention, as I understand it, would be to carry out more works on the power site at the end of Mangatapu, and that's something that they're pretty keen to avoid. I understand iwi Hapu would be keen to avoid that as well. So I think the focus for Transpower and us will be to see if we can facilitate a process that results in agreement between all the parties about what should happen there.
Councillor McDonald and then Clark. No, Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to add to Ruben's kōrero then, I am aware that Tangata Whenua will be vehemently opposing the resubmission of the application. And just to highlight that really the choice that Tangata Whenua had was the best of the two evils of the siting. So originally, they were against and they wanted the removal of the pylons from where Transpower are going to reapply for. And as you are well aware, or if you're not aware, the new positioning was down below beside the marae and right next door to the kohanga. So, you know, they were caught between a hard rock, you know, and a rock and a hard place. So I think the fight by Tangata Whenua will continue even with the renewal of that resource. There was another option for Transpower to take up, but I understand they were arguing the financial implications of that. But as you see from the court, that did not alter the judgment that the judge had made. Insofar as what does the MACA do? I understand it'll give more weighting to tangata whenau's objection when that time comes. So it's a space for us to be watching. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. I've got questions from Andrew Von Delson. Councillor Von Delson, please.
Yeah, thank you. Page 33, the pollution hotline and complaints response. Just noting that 70% are related to air quality, with 1,022 being odour. Now, can I just, and it came through there that 24% of calls were substantiated. We have an issue in our area with down at Judea, the pet food factory. You've got a situation above that factory up on Edgecombe Road, directly above it. The residents there are so sick of ringing, they no longer bother. It is foul, often foul. When it is bad, it is really bad. And we've seen Ziwi recently be sold for $1.6 billion, that company. So there's a lot of money in this business, a lot of money. And they should not be polluting in residential areas. We personally live in 4th Avenue, which is probably a kilometre away. And my partner has a particularly strong nose. She did used to own a perfumery business. I don't have the same nose, I must say. Got a terrible nose. But so she is sensitive to it. But at 1.5 kilometres away, she is still regularly smelling, only at certain times of day and for thing. But that's a huge distance away to actually smell it. And she also picks it up when she's walking the dog, and she will report it. But it's disappointing to say that 24% of calls are substantial. These people do not ring if there isn't a problem. They're not recidivist, what's the word, I think. But, you know, this is a serious issue. And yes, I think it's been partially addressed. They have improved what it was, but it is still not satisfactory for the local residents, especially those on the hill straight above the factory. And I have huge empathy for them. And I think we have an obligation to actually make sure that these industries are compliant 24 hours a day, not most of the time. Thank you.
And you'll see on the previous page, Councillor Von Delson, on page 32, Ziwi Pet Foods have been granted a resource consent to commissioners. What? Sorry?
That's Ziwi over at the Mount. I'm not talking about Ziwi over at the Mount.
Oh.
I'm talking about what's Alpine Foods in Judea. I'm talking about. So it's different to Ziwi. And Ziwi have applied to they're building a factory, I think, at Hawke's Bay or something. So,
yeah.
So
this is, yeah, I'm just talking about Ziwi as a 1 year.
Yeah, that's to cover them for that.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about another pet food factory. That is, and our staff have been working hard with them. I'm not, no criticism of the staff, what they're doing, but I just think we need to take a stronger view. This is affecting residential people.
Thank you. Should I respond?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to just make 2 comments, Councillor Von Delson. The first is we have expressed a huge gratitude to the community in Judea who have been experiencing these odours, and they have been incredibly helpful for staff in trying to work through the problem, doing the odour diaries, surveying, providing us with a lot of survey information and helping us in terms of the next steps with that particular activity, particularly, you know, they need a consent. There's a lot of work to get them through that consent process and a lot of patience by the community. So the team have worked really hard 24/7 to try and provide that level of support, and we're very thankful that they've been open to that. The second point is that as a whole team, and we know that there are a number of very smelly activities in parts of the region, and we need to rethink the way we manage odours. And, you know, for staff to have to get down to a site, undertake what we call that final assessment, the odour's often gone, but the community is still experiencing something that affects their day-to-day lives. So we've got a team across the organisation, policy, compliance, consents, science, data services, all sitting around the table to try and rethink the way we can manage odour and respond better and support the community better. So I'll keep you posted on that work.
Yeah, it's something that probably does, you know, we need to sell our story as well to the community, so that, you know, because not all the community know what's going on there, and there's those that are smelling it. It's foul when it is foul, and I've smelled it for myself. I would hate to live in those houses straight above it, personally. But it's a public relations exercise as much as anything. And can you please keep coming back to us with updates and the chair's report's a good place to do it as to the progress that's been made, because nobody expects it to be resolved overnight, but we do expect it to be resolved when it's affecting our residences and ratepayers.
Councillor McDonald, you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question, but I want to totally support what Councillor Van Dalen is saying. And just a reminder to us that we have a community in our midst that has experiencing bad odours a lot longer than what these new communities are experiencing now. And I want to remind us about the Whareroa Marae and Whareroa Papakainga. They have been experiencing this from the late up to the 1960s. So just a reminder. But what I want to ask, Mr. Chair, is as very similar to how PIM has given us an update around the environmental projects and what's happening, maybe we can start to introduce a report via this committee around updating us around some of these complaints around odours in our communities, because I would be interested too if we have other pockets of our communities that people are contacting our hotline of what's happening, and then we're hearing back from Sarah of what we're actually doing in those specific areas.
So that information is from that phone app, Sarah?
In part, we've been rolling out the phone app in areas where, just to trial it to make sure that it does work before we get it to places where we know there's a critical issue. I'd just also mention that we do have an odour inventory being undertaken in the Mount industrial area right now to determine where those hotspots are, and we will present that back to council and show you that information and where the particular activities are, so you're across that. But that work's being undertaken now.
Okay, so we'll have a regular update. Yep, thanks, Councillor McDonald. Any further questions on the Chair's report? Would somebody like to move that it be received, please? Councillor Crosby, seconded by Councillor Brunning. Any further discussion? All those in favour raise your right hand or say aye. Thank you. Motion is carried. Kirsty, welcome along. So this is on page 49, building future sustainability and resilience through asset management. This is Kirsty Brown. Can you speak to your report, please, Kirsty? Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, councillors. Yes, building future sustainability and resilience through asset management. I'd like to take the report as read, and I've got a brief presentation to share with you. Sherry's going to bring up now. Thank you. So the main goal of our asset management practice is that our infrastructure and the services they provide supports community sustainability and resilience now into the future. A proactive and planned asset management approach is part of the solution as we prepare for climate change and other challenges, while continuing to consider value from other money and other commitments. Apologies, we've got a so yeah, basically this slide here is just showing how the alignment between sustainability and resilience is closely linked with asset management. Moving on to the next slide. So as outlined in the report, we take a whole of life approach to the management of our assets, which is in line with international and national best practice. So this approach allows us to keep a consistent sustainability focus through each cycle of an asset's life, which helps to deliver more benefits and impactful outcomes. At our next LTP and asset management plan review, we have an opportunity to further embed sustainability and resilience into our framework, in particular via our asset management plans, by setting priorities, service levels and targets, and this will support measurement and reporting moving on. Our asset management plan is like our contract with the community. It's basically saying this is the service we're going to provide, to what level and how much it's going to cost. Just on to the last slide. I've included this slide. It's from a recent NAMS Advanced Asset Management Forum that I attended, just to highlight that sustainability is a very hot topic for asset managers across the nation. So this slide is from a presentation around embedding sustainability, and it supports the recommended pathway outlined in the report, where to successfully align our asset management programs, we need specific strategic goals, and starting with publicly focused levels of service, which then flows on through to KPIs and operational metrics. So that's the end of my presentation there, and I'm open to questions.
Councillor Crosby.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's quite a pertinent concept and is gathering a lot of steam. One of the issues I didn't pick up in there is procurement and specification is critical to resilience, and many tenders are lowest cost compliant, which can miss actually a resilient component. Have you got any comment about how this organisation will focus on, particularly in the material space? You know, you can buy a pipe that will last 20 years and one that will last 50, one that will survive an earthquake and one that won't. A lot was learned out of the Christchurch earthquake in that space. So how is this organisation linking procurement and specification to resilience?
Thank you, that's a very good question. So that moves back to this whole of life asset life approach that we take, which includes the creation and procurement. And we do look at opportunities to source locally, looking at green options, that kind of thing. So it is quite a big process. What we have discussed moving forward is having a checklist within our procurement documents and measuring each tender up against that sort of checklist to see that we're getting that sort of more sustainable focus on projects.
Okay, Councillor. Yeah. I've got questions from Councillor Clark and Mike. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, I guess mine's more of a statement than a question to our broader council team, and the capacity, my capacity as rivers and advisory teams, is that become increasingly aware that our people and rivers and drainage are right on the coalface of climate change, and they have got a lot of challenges ahead of them, particularly in the social spectre, where people actually have to fess up and actually face the realities of what's going to happen. And I guess I just need to put that message out to our council to say we're putting our people out there very much on the front line. That's beyond their traditional role as engineers in that space. And I think there will need to be some support mechanisms over time for the people in there. So, yeah, that's me. Cheers.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Kia ora, thanks for the report. I noted your comments on best practice, and that comes out in the paper. But I also noted on your slide reference to ISO standards. Are we ISO certified in this particular best practice scenario? Because I'm just aware that it's quite a complex situation to get certification. Are we certified?
No, we're not. We use the ISO 55000 as a guide on what we need to do. We do use a document that they refer to as the IIN. So that's the International Infrastructure Management Manual. And that is how. So the ISO is what, and the IIN tells us how. So we follow that religiously as our guiding document.
Thank you.
Councillor Neith.
Thank you very much. It's great to see that we are embedding these principles in our work in the way forward. My question's about the River Scheme Sustainability Project. I don't think we've had a comprehensive report on what's actually happening for some time, and I'm aware of some little bits and pieces that are happening, some conversations, for example, that are happening in the Rangataiki, and some work that's happening in the Kaituna, where it's been revealed that the level of service is not being met, that in fact the level of service is way down on what they thought they'd signed up to, and that we need to be thinking differently about how that service is provided. So I just wondered, Mr. Chair, if we could have some report back, integrated report back on the River Scheme Sustainability Project, what's happening in the various schemes and how that is going to flow into this work. Yes.
Got that, Kirsty? Oh, next meeting. Thank you. Councillor Von Danielson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Following on from that, several of the councillors in the room were part of the flood bylaw review, flood and river scheme, and I think, we came to a good conclusion. I think it would be good for this committee at the same time as gets that other update, to get an update on the progress that we've made, just so that our councillors are informed when we make a decision, what is the follow on, how is it going, are there any shortfalls that need, just a report, please, for the next meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Von Danielson. Yeah, good point. We need to know that how we're getting on in terms of what's the word, policing that rivers and drainage bylaw, and what are some of the issues coming back to us, because I know in Whakatane River, Whakatane community, there's some issues there of people that were building or had shrubs and what have you on riverbanks, and some of the consternation that's been, conflict that's been caused. So yeah, good.
It's just good practice to
review
and benchmark and just make sure that we're on track for what we undertook to do.
Yep, perfect. We can do that next meeting, September, Kirsty, have that as well. Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor White, are you okay? Yep, okay. All right, there's Councillor Eaty, sorry.
John, Mr. Chair, just further to Councillor Von Davison's comment, which I think is great. Could just around specific areas like the Kopihino Marae and the Urupa, if we could get an update on how that engagement went, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, there's a resolution on page 49, is it 49? Yep. That we Monitoring Operations Committee, we received this report, and point 2, we approve the approach to further implement sustainability and resilience into our asset management practices. Move it. I've got moved by Councillor Love, seconded by Councillor Von Daddelson. Any further discussion? I'll put that resolution. All those in favour, raise your right hand or say aye. Thank you. Motion is carried. Thank you for that. Cup of tea time. Can we have a 15-minute break, please? And we'll be back at 11:15.
Mr. Chairman, just before you go, I just wanted to acknowledge Kirsty's, well, she didn't mention this, but she's actually bringing the discipline of asset management that's applied to rivers and drainage across the rest of the organisation as well. So we've actually got 5 different asset management classes, as you saw in the table.
Yes, on page 50.
Yeah, and that's now being applied consistently across those areas through our asset management steering group that Matt Taylor and I sit on.
Yep.
So this is wider than just rivers and drainage.
Rivers and drainage, yeah.
So it's a new way of
it's
doing
the big ticket items first, Chris, by the looks of it.
So thanks to Kirsty's leadership in that area.
Thank you. Thank you, Kirsty. Okay, back at 11:15. Those of you on Zoom, okay. Cup of tea.
Got a bit of rush.
I know, we didn't have a presentation, but we're back to what we were doing.
That's a good presentation.
Well, there's a few
Hello, hello. Hello, hello.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, staff. Can we carry on with the agenda? And we are on page 56. And this is the Wanganui Industrial Area update. And I have presenting this as Reese Irving and Sam Weiss. Good afternoon, or is it good morning, gentlemen? It is still good morning, gentlemen. Floor is yours.
Kia ora tātou katoa. As per each of these committee meetings, this is an update on the Mountain Industrial Area, the work that's occurred since we last reported, so over a period of the last 4 months. We will take this as read and available for any questions.
So just a question from me, Reese, the new portable air monitoring devices that have been put out and about, they're proving to be reliable, but we can't use them for regulatory purposes. They're just an additional piece of information. Is that correct?
That's right, Chair. So there was a trial, so they were provided by NIWA and that's been completed. So we were really just seeing, okay, what is the efficacy of this equipment. What we have found is that they're not something we can use for compliance, but if there was a requirement to look at a large area picture in the future, then they would be effective for us to have a look at that.
Cool.
Thank you. They've now been returned to NIWA.
Oh, right. So how long was the trial? Was it just 3 months?
We had them out for about 3 months, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Councillors, take the report as read. Are there any questions to Sam or Reese? Councillor Brunning?
Yes, with the improvements that have been highlighted in the numbers of complaints or exceedances, is it reflected in the quality of life at Rotorua Marae?
That is a good question, Councillor. I don't know that I can comment on the quality of life at the marae. We obviously still attend regularly when there is any complaint or we are aware of any issues that are going on there. And we are working through almost everything we do to try and ensure that the effect of poor air quality on that community is getting addressed. But their quality of life, whether it's improving because of pollution, reducing, I'm not sure.
And through you, Chair, just to add on to Reese's comments there, the exceedances that we record and report against the National Environmental Standards only relate to PM10, and we do know, as we discussed earlier on in the agenda, that some really big concerns for Whareroa and what they are suffering are odour issues, and that's not reflected in our PM10 changes and improvements.
Any further questions? Interesting to see on page 63, the reduction in methyl bromide at the port. Profound. Sam? Did you want to comment on that?
Yes, it certainly is hugely significant looking at that reduction. And I know the intention or the hope of the fumigator is certainly to build those numbers up again and be able to reinvigorate the log aspect of the fumigation. And to do that, however, they are going to have to achieve much higher recapture rates. And I think in the report it says that they need to recapture about 90% of the remaining gas after fumigation in order to practically fumigate at the port. And at this stage, they haven't demonstrated to us that they can do that. And therefore, that's why we're continuing to have those low levels.
Because you can certainly see the number of trucks trucking through Rotorua that are all debarked, so they're coming from far and wide. Councillor McDonald, you had a question?
Just comments. I just want to reiterate the comments made by Councillor Brunning around the exceedance versus quality of life, specifically the Whareroa community. This is an issue that's been raised more than once in the Mountain Industrial Group and to my view, it has not been satisfied. So I think, you know, what would be helpful is some sort of plea, I guess. I'm going to say a plea from the Bapaliti Regional Council to that group, requesting that from those health providers who sit around that Mount Industrial group table, because we have not yet received a report, which I understood was coming to that group and to us around some of the health impacts. So I would like a request then made to that Mount Industrial group around the question that has been raised by Councillor Brunning.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Councillor White?
Yes. Just following on from Councillor McDonald, it seems to me that on this particular issue of Whareroa, and particularly the odour issues, that we're tiptoeing to the tulips often and nothing is actually happening. And so my question really is, well, what is needed to make something happen? Is it a legislative change? Is that what it will take to get that change? We measure particulate matter, but we've got nothing in the space that allows us to really exercise authority around odours. Is that a legislative change, is it?
Through you, Chair, the way we manage odours might need to be a legislative change. That's right. I think we also need to take a step back and think about the whole experience and the situation that Whareroa are in, as you know, in terms of air quality and pollution, and we're talking about PM10 and odour. There are a lot of other issues that they are facing, and that includes, you know, the visual amenity, noise, light, all sorts of issues that are facing that community that are surrounded by heavy industry that operates 24/7. So I think we can legislative change or a rule change for us for better managing odour, but there is some bigger discussions around Whareroa and how we support them.
Councillor Von Dedel. Councillor Von Dedelson.
Yeah, just going back to the methyl bromide one, that's a huge drop off. And yes, there's a lot more debarking being done. Have we had any information from Rotorua as to the economic impacts of this? And I'm just thinking, you know, looking to the future, there was a downturn due to COVID, no doubt, of the log trade, but long term, it is a very important trade for us. And so I just want to, I know we've got, EDM is an alternative to methyl bromide, and that's looking promising, but, you know, is this lower level, you know, realistic if we're going to have a viable economy and, you know, a forestry sector, blah, blah, blah. You know, so we're only seeing one part of the picture is what I'm really saying. And would it be worth talking to the port, if you haven't already, as to how we can achieve best practice without impinging upon our exports?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I certainly understand those concerns. I think our focus really has been more on dealing with the fumigator, and in fact, what you see reflected here in the reduced volumes of methyl bromide used, it's really nothing to do with the regional council position on methyl bromide. This is being driven entirely by the Environmental Protection Authority decision that came out last year, where they said unless you achieve a certain amount of recapture, well, they link the level of recapture to the buffer distance required. And so up until this point, at least, the fumigator hasn't been able to achieve that necessary level of recapture. So in saying that, we are still actively working on the consents that Fumigator has lodged with us, but we don't have the option of providing them or the port anything more lenient than the EPA has come out with.
I'm not suggesting that we do either, so don't get me wrong there. I was just looking, you know, as to the outcomes and what it's doing to it, you know, as I'm thinking more as a shareholder, as a major shareholder in the port than the compliance arm of us, just to get a better understanding of the situation and how.
I think that's a question for the port directors, Councillor Londelson, as opposed to our staff. I mean, we're in the compliance regulatory. The economic impact of using or not using methyl bromide is up to the exporters, the ports, the overseas markets. You know, I think your question's beyond our brief. Let's put it that way.
That said, we want to be, we want the port to be a good corporate citizen, and yes, we want to, as an organisation, to be proactively helpful rather than hindrance.
And that's why that chart's there.
Yeah.
It's methyl bromide use is down considerably since the beginning of the year. Yeah. Yeah. Because there are alternatives. Councillor Thompson. Yes, Councillor Thompson, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sarah, I'm very reluctant to talk because every time you're on Zoom and you talk, you come up on that huge screen.
Yes, so, you are on the huge screen, Councillor Thompson.
So this will be the last time I talk.
Put your face mask on and you'll be fine.
Sarah, would you succinctly describe exactly what the Tauranga City Council is up to in terms of resolving Mount Maunganui air issues?
Through you, Chair, we included a presentation in the minutes from the last Air Quality Working Party that sets out really Tauranga City Council's position for the Mount Industrial Area. And you'll see, I think that starts on page 87, and talking about the city plan and how it manages land use and subdivision, talking about the review that's underway. They flag that there is a project for the Mount Industrial Area, which is making sure that the City Council has a coordinated approach to existing and new work. And they also touched on at that meeting their future industrial land use study that they have underway. I can't provide anything more succinct than I think they had. But if it would help, we could certainly have staff from Tauranga City Council come back at the next Mount Industrial update and talk about the work that they've got alongside our staff, because we've been trying very hard to work together on this issue.
Yeah, thank you. And through you, Chair, thanks for that, Sarah. I just find that information just far too general. So I would very much appreciate the opportunity to hear from Tauranga City Council staff on exactly what they're doing in this space. So I'd be very grateful. Thank you. And now please get me off the big screen.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Nees?
Oh, just with regard to that, at the civic pre-breakfast, the commissioners gave a presentation on their proposed vision for Tauranga, and Mount Maunganui Air was highlighted as one of their priorities. So I very much support Councillor Thompson's request, because they've obviously elevated it into an area of importance. It was really good to see what that looks like.
Yeah, and through this, the agenda, you'll see reports from Dr. Phil Schumack of Public Health back to the Mount Maunganui Air Quality Working Party and the TCC presentation. So that's there just for your information. Councillor Thompson, we thought it was useful to put that in to help you in your understanding of where to from here. So are there any other questions to Sam and Reece on this paper, Wanganui Industrial Area Update? Any further questions? No? If not, there's a resolution that we've received the report and all the attachments for your use, information. Somebody like to move? Councillor Love, seconded by Councillor Brunning. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Raise your hand. Motion is carried.
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
can I make one further comment?
Yep.
The community has for some time expressed some disquiet to compliance staff, and I'm sure to other staff, that at times perhaps our decision making about certain issues occurring at the port may be influenced by our shareholding of regional council indirectly in the port. And for that reason, some time ago, we made a decision, or I think Sarah may have made that decision, to really separate out any decisions that we are making and become quite removed from them. So we get independent consultants involved and independent commissioners. So always to try and have a very clear distinction between the compliance function and any potential financial impact those decisions might have. Yeah, to avoid that conflict of interest.
We understand that, Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that clarification, and good point to make. We all understand that, but yes, there are portions of our community that see us very much woven together. But as you said, independent commissioners, arm's length, we're the regulator, but yes, we're also a shareholder, but we keep well apart so that we're not in a conflict of interest. Thank you for that explanation. Okay, thanks, team. Okay, moving on to Rotorua catchment activity update on page 113. Are you presenting this, Chris, or is Helen on stream?
Helen's online, I think, so.
Helen, are you there?
About to turn her camera on.
So this is page 113, people, in terms of what we've been doing on the Rotorua catchment activity update. You'll see in page 115 the resolutions that were passed at the last strategy group hearing. And Helen, we haven't got any report, haven't got any response back from the Minister for the Environment in terms of those resolutions for Rotoiti, Rotomā, Tarawera. Is that correct? Over to you.
That's right. Are you able to hear me?
Yep.
Yes, great. Yeah, morena tātou, ko Helen Cray tokuingoa. Yes, that's right. So we haven't had a response back from the Ministry for the Environment in relation to the Minister's decision about in relation to strategy groups resolutions around the shortfall in funding for the Rotoiti reticulation scheme, but they are actively working on it, and they've come back to myself and Stavros at Rotorua Lakes Council with some more questions. So they are actively working on briefings to the Minister and his office. So we hope to hear soon.
Fingers crossed.
Yes, yeah. So look, I don't have any particular slides today. My report was really just to provide you all with the work of the Rotorua catchments activity since the last comprehensive update that we provided you, which I think was in March. We've since then had our 6-month report for the Rotorua Taurua Lakes program adopted by Strategy Group, and also our annual work program for 2022-2023, which is based on, of course, our annual plan, the Regional Council's adopted annual plan. And also we've made, and Strategy Group has made those resolutions around the further requests to the Minister following his decisions on the Rotoiti and Tarawera reticulation, and I've also provided an update on where those schemes are at in this report. So happy to take any questions that there might be about those things.
Thank you, Helen. Questions? Councillor Nees?
Thank you very much, Helen. Just a question about the Lake Rotorua incentive scheme. Is there still demand and nitrogen available for purchase in the catchment?
Yes, in fact, we signed another large agreement last week. So we're up to about, I think, 34 or 35 tonnes. And we have another 5 tonnes in the pipeline, so we can see a pathway to 40. We also have more beyond that. We don't have a pathway to 100 tonnes yet, but we're getting contact, you know, every couple of weeks we'd get a new person come that's interested, largely with smaller amounts. So we're not getting lots of new big deals, but we're consistently getting small amounts. So we're still making progress and we've still got deals to do. And that funding has been pushed out. The ministers agreed to push the funding for the incentive scheme out till 2027.
Just a comment I would make is that, you know, that target that was set for taking nitrogen out of the lake was part of a plan change process, and we have a
framework,
yes.
Yep.
So we have an obligation, and I just am concerned about the comments coming out of the Rotorua Te Lake Strategy Group that there needs to be a review of the way that program is implemented, and I think we need to remind parties that we have a statutory requirement to actually buy back that nitrogen, that it's not something we can resolve from. So it's good to hear that incentive funding has been confirmed through to 27, did you say?
Through 27.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the review, Helen, that Jane talks about is a review of the strategy group, terms of reference, and, you know, just the, I think it came from the Lakes Water Quality Society wants to be involved as well in terms of that review. What we thought was going to happen with our lakes in terms of interventions, not necessarily happening, wanting to know why. So it's just a review of the strategy group, which we've agreed to, and just making sure that we're still fit for purpose going forward for the next 10 years. Because once these sewage schemes are in, you know, fingers crossed, once they're in, what else is the strategy group going to be doing into the future to intervene in terms of catchment management? Does that sum it up, Helen?
Yes, it does. So back in March, when the Lakes Water Quality Society had their AGM, they made a resolution and resulting request to the strategy group for the program to undertake a review. And Te Arawa Lakes Trust picked that up. They would like to see that, and they'd like to lead that. So the strategy group has committed to Te Arawa Lakes Trust leading that review, and Te Arawa Lakes Trust representatives on the strategy group were keen for that to be an independent review, so not undertaken by their staff as such, but they engage an independent person to do it. So they're in the process of scoping that and finding some people that could do that, and they'll bring that scope back to strategy group in September.
Thank you, Helen. Are there any more questions from those on Zoom or in-house to Helen on the Rotorua Lakes catchment activity? I've got a resolution on page 113. No other questions? Would someone like to move the report be received? Councillor Nees, seconded by Councillor Brunning. Any further discussion? I'll put that resolution. All those in favour, raise your right hand or say aye. Thank you. Motion is carried. Right, moving through to, thank you, Helen. Very good. Are you going to stay online for the next one, or she's disappeared? No.
No, she hasn't.
Mr. Corbett, greetings, good morning. Dharma Wallabies. Lovely, lovely topic. Your operational plan for 2022-23 and a program update, please. Good morning, welcome.
Thank you, Chair, and morning, councillors. Today I've got with me Darbyl Bijakovic. Darbyl has recently joined us and taken on the role as our Wallaby Program Lead. Comes from us from Greater Wellington Regional Council, where he held a similar role to mine.
Welcome, Darbyl.
I'd like to just table the report as read, and Shari, we've got a short presentation just to go over, maybe give an update on the program where we've come from over the last 18 months through the national program, and then a quick overview of our plans for next year.
Cool, brilliant.
So program update. Just a quick little recap. This program is delivered in partnership with our colleagues at Waikato Regional Council and with the Department of Conservation, and obviously with significant funding now from through MPO and the Jobs for Nature Fund. You'll see from the map there that our containment area for wallabies extends into the Waikato region. That black line is the regional boundary. So Waikato have a really strong interest in this program naturally. Also, I'd like just to acknowledge the role that LINZ play in supporting the data management for this program and also for the wild and conifer program. So surveillance. Surveillance has been our key activity over the last 18 months. And this primarily has been due to trying to get a good understanding of what wallabies actually exist outside our containment area. The report there indicated some 270 odd detections. Some of those have been just within the edge of the containment area, but there have been 178 detections on outside. But we just need to note that some of these detections could be a single animal that's been encountered several times. I suppose over the last 18 months, we've had 3 reports in particular that are of greater concern than others. And if you look on the map there, you'll see directly above Taupo and to the west and to the southeast of Taupo, 3 dots with some surveillance work. The only way that those animals could have got there is through human-assisted releases. So that though there has been work undertaken, there's been an animal dispatched at Opepe. There's more surveillance to be carried out there on State Highway 5. Wairaki, there was a petting zoo type place which we believe was the source of a number of wallabies that are hopping around there. And the one at Kinleaf at the moment is unresolved. Next slide, please, Sharon. Onto control work. So the control work of on wallabies outside the containment area has been also a key bit of work for us. We have been there have been quite some delays in getting a number of operations underway, and this is mainly just to make sure that we're bringing mana whenua and our landowners on the journey with us. And obviously some of the methods that we are using take a bit of time to work through, particularly the use of 1080. We currently have completed 3 aerial 1080 operations. Those are the areas highlighted in purple on the screen there. All of those have been in the Waikato region, and 2 of them have been delivered through the Department of Conservation as part of their battle for the birds, but they also contribute to the wallaby program. We currently have work that's not actually showing up on there at the moment, but it's just started this week on the just the northeast of Lake Rotorua. There's a small population there just west of Okere, and we are still working with landowners in mana whenua at Rainbow Mountain, the northwest portion of Kaingaroa Forest, Tipanui, Mount Nongataha and Waipupu Mahana. So there's we're hoping to get all those operations underway this year as those consultations are progressing reasonably satisfactory at the moment. Next slide, please, Sharon. Fencing. This is the first containment fence that we've constructed. It's at Okere, just to act as a bit of a barrier for to stop wallabies from crossing the bridge on State Highway 33. As I just talked about before, we do have a population just to the west of that bridge, and it would appear obvious that those wallabies have used that bridge to access what we hope to be a wallaby-free area. This fence is a purpose-built wallaby fence. It's used a Waratah product, Waratah Australian fencing company, and obviously those guys are really experienced in creating fences to stop kangaroos and wallabies from accessing farmland over in Australia. Next slide, please, Sharon. The other bit of work that we've been doing has been night shooting. Some shooting has been used to deal with animals detected outside the containment area, particularly where we've just got a detection on open farmland type situations. And we're also been using night shooting in the last couple of months to just reduce the risk of wallabies within the containment area from spreading into areas where they're not already present. And to date, about 2,000 odd animals have been dispatched.
So is that in the last 3 months or
probably
3,000?
We've had a really bad run of the weather. Most of those have been dispatched in the last 3 weeks.
Right, yeah.
Sorry, can I ask, there was a photo that was put out of a field with lots and lots and lots of wallabies in it.
It's called Facebook Council.
Yeah, well, I was just horrified. Where was that?
The landowner involved has asked us not to disclose that area just because they don't want to be inundated by people wanting to access that land, but it is right in the middle of the core infestation area.
It's in our turf.
It is in the Bay of Plenty, yeah. Next slide, please, Shari.
Yeah,
talking about Facebook. Really want to acknowledge Melissa Williams from our comms team. She's just provided great support to our program around comms and awareness. Most of you are probably aware that Ken Rawati has supported us in our program introductory video, just talking about the impacts of wallabies. That video was really well received. We've had multiple TV and radio interviews as a follow-on from that video and from obviously the Facebook report photo. That Facebook photo was, the outreach of that was amazing. It was over 180,000 people saw that. We had 2,000 comments on it. Significant number of shares and really positively, we've had more than 1,000 visits to our own Wallaby page on our website. We've been producing quarterly newsletters and with a growing number of subscriptions, and we now have our regional coordination group in place. So this is a group of iwi and stakeholders, and they act as a reference group for us in helping us design our operational program and connect better with our communities. Moving on to our operational plan for the coming year, thanks, Shari. So we've had a subtle shift in our priorities. So in the last 18 months, our priority has been really about trying to detect wallabies outside the containment area. We're now going to be focused in the next few years on dealing with those populations that we have found. We're still going to carry on our surveillance outside the containment area to see if we can pick up any more, because we are aware that the methods that we are using, we're aware that we don't have enough understanding of the detection probability of the methods we're using to be confident that that a negative result is actually a negative result from surveillance. So we'll be doing multiple surveillance activities in risk areas. We're also going to be focusing on preventing the outwards dispersal of wallabies from the containment area, and that night shooting work we just talked about is part of that. So that's work primarily focused in that yellow area in the that we're calling the containment buffer. And then we're also going to be, when we've got resources available, working within the containment area to try and keep some of the areas that are wallaby free at the moment and within the containment area free of wallabies, and particularly in the northeast corner up towards Paengaroa and Makatu, that a lot of that country there currently doesn't have wallabies in it. It's within the containment area because we are using the Kaituna River as a natural barrier. Next slide, please, Sharon. So for this coming financial year, we have 72 operations planned. Now that sounds like an awful lot, but some of the operations are quite small, involving post-operational monitoring or just discrete surveillance activities. The budget there, 3.4 million, with 900,000 coming from our council and our colleagues across the regional boundary at Waikato. And our biggest activity probably for this coming year is proposed construction of a containment fence running along the edge of State Highway 5 next to Whakarearea Forest. We've already had a discussion with our Rotorua-based councillors about that fence. And we'll be looking to bring back a paper to the full council because just of the scale of that purchase of the project management services there, and the fact that it's outside the scope of our current Wallaby panel, so that needs to come back to council for approval to procure those services. Some of the activities and there also involve early consultation for further aerial operations and from the Bay of Plenty perspective within Kaingaroa Forest and from Waikato in the northern Mamaku range. And we'll also be, as I've mentioned earlier, hopefully getting our several ground operations underway at Nongataha, Waipupu, Mahana, and on Rainbow Mountain. We are facing, however, with those ground operations, a bit of an unforeseen risk that may delay us, and that is that the active ingredient for ferrotox, which is the toxin we use for a lot of our ground control, is currently not available. And this is it's an unfortunate follow-on from the war in the Ukraine, with Japan not wanting to export any supplies of potassium cyanide for fears that it might be used for chemical warfare. So we're MPI working with MPAT to try and just negotiate a way through that at the moment. That's it from me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. And we've got a question from Councillor Clark. Just from me first, how many night shooters, qualified night shooters, do we have on the team?
Through your chair, we have 6 contractors with a number of staff, and probably we are actually meeting about 30 of them tomorrow as sort of end of year debrief. So at least those 30 would have been involved in night shooting operations. Right. As of when you ask staff, I get a bit confused because our staff are actually not shooting, we go through contractors.
And that's what I need to know, is that we've got 30 qualified night shooters either on our books or contractors. That's a good number to bandy around to say we're serious about this issue. Thank you. Councillor Clark?
Yeah, kia ora, guys. Hey, Greg and team, knowing that this little beast is under constant surveillance, have you actually learned anything more about the behaviour of this animal that changes your approach and how you can eradicate it?
That's a really good question, Councillor. Part of the debrief that Darville just spoke about is very much about trying to extract those learnings from our contractors. They're the ones that are on the ground experiencing these things and learning as they go. So I won't make any comments just yet, but we are looking to extract that information from our contractors as from tomorrow, and Darville's actively working with a number of other pet food harvesters to try and document their learnings over recent years as well.
Thanks, Greg. Councillor Brunning?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And further to your question around the trained operators, I think you reported earlier on that there weren't enough people there to contract to do the job. So are we at a stage where the market for contracting to us is competitive?
I would say, for you, Chair, I'd say yes. And also growing that pool is something that we're still looking to do, particularly with mana whenua. So we do have strong interest from mana whenua groups to be trained and to participate in our programs. And Darville's been working with groups at Nongataha and Rainbow Mountain particularly to deliver mana whenua based operations there.
Thank you. Councillor White?
Yeah, kia ora, guys. Hey, look, it's good to see the story is getting out there around these cunning little shy little beasts that seem to be very cuddly. Joe Blow public would not see many of these. I mean, and neither would a lot of Māori not seeing this. And even though we're the landowners there, so do you with all of the storytelling that's going on, do you have any sort of surveys about understanding of our publics out there about these beasts, other than what they've been told? Because, like I said, they're often out of sight, not seen, other than seen on occasional roadkill. So, any comments?
Through you, Chair. So MPI are currently doing some surveying of public perceptions. That's been done nationally. I haven't seen the results of that yet, but interestingly, with the new Wallaby Reporting Act that MPI or LINZ have developed to support the program, there have been over 700 reports of wallabies nationally. So some of those obviously in the South Island and a lot in the North Island. And it probably is not a surprise that most of those have been from within the containment area. So it's always good to get those reports through, even if they are ones of wallabies in areas where we're well aware that they're present. It is showing that the communities are engaging in the program.
Yeah, no, thanks for that response. I've said this before, but these are cute little beasts. As a baby boomer, you'd remember Skippy, the cute kangaroo. so it's really good to change that perception of public that these aren't smiley little cuddly beasts. They're destroying our environment. Kia ora.
Yeah. Oh, can I share just one more thing with the team, guys? A farmer came down to see me recently because he'd heard that there might be a bounty on wallabies coming up. So he's actually got 220 sets of ears in his deep freeze, just in case he can catch them up someday. This is the stuff that he's harvested. No, but whatever, spread the rumor, cheap kill, and just sharing that with the team.
Is it the left ear or the right ear? We're putting it. No, we're not putting it down here. No, right. Okay. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Darwell. Brilliant. Keep up the good work. We want more numbers dead than alive. And congratulations and keep up the good work.
Thank you, councillors.
Councillors, there's a resolution on page 142. Just we received the report from Greg and Darwell. Would somebody like to move, please? Councillor Eady, second by Councillor Crosby. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. It was carried. Moving on to 172, which is the River Schemes Advisory Group Liaison with River Co-Governance Forums. Kirsty, you're back again. Gosh, that was quick. Kirsty, over to you again.
Thank you. So the purpose of this report was to advise.
Turn your mic on.
Oh, it is on.
Oh.
I might have been sitting too far away. So the purpose of this report was to advise how we're facilitating better communication between our river scheme advisory groups and the relevant river authorities with the sharing of written reports between the two groups. This reporting will be ongoing. So I'd like to take the report as read and open up for questions.
Councillor, any questions? You must be doing a sterling job, Kirsty. No questions.
Thank you.
No questions from Zoom? No? Okay. Move the report, Councillor Love, seconded by Councillor Brunning. We received this report. Yep. Keep up the conversations. Thank you. I'll put that resolution on page 172. All those in favour, raise your right hand, say aye. Each carried. Moving on to consider items not on the agenda. So we've got a quick update from Laverne Mason on climate change, and it looks as though, Sarah, we may have to put this on 3 monthly. This is just an update on the work program. So rather than 6 monthly, it's been requested. So Laverne, are you there?
Kia ora, councillors. Yes, I am here.
Cool.
I have a.
Floor's yours.
Thank you. I have a very brief presentation, and I will share that now. My apologies.
It's all right.
Mr. Chair, perhaps I can explain why I think it's important that we hear 3 monthly.
Yep.
And that is because I see popping up in various minutes from different groups that they've received a presentation from the Regional Council on what we're doing with climate change. And I feel uncomfortable when I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And the community's being told about things. I just want to make sure that I'm as well informed as they.
And I think the last report was going to
Smart Growth Group or something like that was the report to that. So yeah, good. Yep.
Thank you.
Laverne, over to you.
So yes, this is a very brief update, as some of these projects and most of the projects are really very long ones and take up to a year to complete. This is an overview of sorry, let me close that out, of the dashboard, and you will see that there's very little change to the statuses of the 19 projects that have been underway in the action plan for this year. The highlights for the program since the March update have been around the community-led adaptation funding. This has been a very successful piece of work, and to date we have had 5 applications for funding from the community for them to actually take their stance and start doing a bit of risk assessment and prioritizing around climate change in their own community. So we've received 2 reports back, and the rest are still underway. The regional risk assessment has been a massive piece of work, and the first stage of the project has been completed. The outputs were a detailed risk workbook and also a summary with perspectives on climate change risk to Maori in the Bay of Plenty. Stage 2 involves the actual detailed technical assessments of the risks identified in stage 1, and we're underway with that at the moment. And alongside that, we'll be exploring the exploration of the Maori perspective on climate change risks. So it's all joined up. The outputs of this phase will be delivered in the second half of this year, and then there will be a third phase in terms of identifying the ones that we're actually going to implement change around. The next thing was the Wednesday challenge was launched, and this has been administered by EnviroHub, but we keep a tab on it in the climate change program. Regional business support events. This was also again a small funding initiative to encourage our business communities in the region to do a bit of an assessment and come up with tools, and we worked with Sustainable Business Network. There was one held in Tauranga late last year, and we've just completed the other 2 workshops in Whakatane and Rotorua by supporting the SBN network to do this work. The Bay of Plenty Regional Council carbon footprint update. The last carbon footprint was done in 2015. This current process is to update that work, and it will cover the years 2018-19 through to 2021. And we're also expecting the final report by the end of this year. There has been some interaction with our stakeholders, particularly with the port in terms of their data, and so that will be incorporated and bringing the stakeholders along in it. The climate change projection mapping tool is now complete, and that is a story map that's on our website under the climate change webpage, and it enables anybody in the community to really map out by using clickers and sliders what the impact of climate change could be on them in their particular region, area, right down to their street. And it's been a very useful little tool to be able to use when talking with the community, to say that there are tools available for them to have a look at what impacts could be expected. The other one is the Toitu carbon reduce audit. As you know, that was presented to yourselves, the result of that, and the prep for the next audit is actually just kicked off. On the policy side, we've had the emissions reduction plan, and staff from across the local authorities collaborated on a joint local authority submission. And then the draft national adaptation plan was released for consultation in June. And because it responds to the first national risk assessment and brings together the existing central government actions and a 6-year forward work program. So it doesn't provide much clarity on the roles and responsibilities or the funding and financing, but points to where these may be resolved. And a submission was made on behalf of BOPRC and RTC. So that's the update in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Laverne. Councillor Love, question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Oh, she's online, of course. Talking about the Wednesday challenge, have we got any way of monitoring the traffic flows to see if there is any reduction? I think we need to do that to justify the amount of money we are contributing to that programme.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. This has been addressed by our transport data team, and that forms part of the overall reporting that they manage and measure.
So we will be measuring it?
Yes, as part of the project.
Yep, thank you, Laverne. Any further questions to Laverne? I mean, this was just a very quick verbal report. Councillor Neves?
Just a request for information about the number of groups that we're getting out and talking to about climate change and what people can do about it. Are we doing any?
There's no particular plan to talk to groups. However, we do send out updates on our web page as well as the Facebook page, and that's our outreach to the community.
Can I've just been promoted significantly. Can I just add there, thanks, Laverne, but Nick Newman and I have been asked to speak at various forums. In fact, Councillor Huey was at the Eastern Bay gathering where we were asked to talk about climate change, and I spoke also about flood inundation modelling information that we have coming out. And that led into a discussion led by Whakatane District Council about spatial planning in the Eastern Bay, which was the three topics flowed into each other rather well, I thought, on that day. But also Nick and I have spoken at a Federated Farmers AGM about the work the Regional Council is doing. So there is this outreach going on, but it's somewhat ad hoc, and it's basically based on invites. So if we get invites, certainly I prioritise my time in making sure we are talking with our communities about what we're doing and asking for their feedback on that.
Yes, apologies, Chris, I forgot to mention those.
Okay, Councillor Love?
Yeah, thank you. So going back to my previous question, can I just ask that the results of the traffic monitoring are brought to your committee on a regular basis, because I think it really is important that we do understand how successful that is. Thank you.
And, you know, if fuel gets to $3.30 a litre plus, with the sales tax being added into at the end of August, I think there's 25 cents a litre. You know, the biggest barrier, the biggest handbrake that people use in cars will be the price of fuel.
Can I just say that already in Taronga, we really are experiencing a drop in traffic. When I drive home, instead of having a 2 kilometre traffic jam on Take a 2-wheel drive, I'm now driving straight through, and it's obvious that there are far less vehicles on the road.
So people are going to opt for other transport methods, be it bus, bike, walk, run, all the like.
Or not go.
Or not go, or go on Zoom. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Laverne. There's no further, there's no resolution to be received today. It's just an update on climate change. Thank you for that, and wish you well. Carry on. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, people, that's the end of the meeting. Thank you for your contribution. But before we go, my right-hand person here is leaving us. So Sarah, thank you for your contribution to monitoring and ops. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with you in the last 3 years. Once we got this monitoring and ops underway, it's been an absolute pleasure. I wish you well in your new career embarkment, and hopefully you're not going to be absent from this organisation, having input into this organisation through your new role, but we wish you all the best for your new venture. Kia ora, thank you.
Yeah, take it.
Okay, people, thank you on Zoom. To those in-house, thank you for that. Declare the meeting